Microsoft accidentally showed off a future vision for Windows? Let's dive into the details. This week, Microsoft announced a smattering of hardware. You've got the Surface Pro 9, you've got the Surface Studio 2 Plus, you've got the Surface Laptop 5, and during this little fanfare of a keynote, Microsoft talked a lot about Windows 11, their hardware, and how they lighten up a whole bunch of fun new experiences. Now, if you were watching the event closely, when the company showed off the Surface Studio 2 Plus, despite its aging hardware, the company kind of showed off something that looks like the Windows version that might be coming next. Windows 12, Windows something or other, or just a mock-up, a SketchUp. Let's just kind of dive into these details here because this is a really fascinating look. The first thing that's really fascinating about this is, one, this was an official Microsoft event. So this isn't some like hack job or something that just showed up accidentally. Well, I guess it could have showed up accidentally. But here is the image. This is from a screenshot of the Surface Studio 2 Plus. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, Brad, this just looks like Windows 11 that they're shipping today, but it's really not. There's actually some very significant and notable details. First off, let's look at the taskbar at the bottom there. That is what we kind of in the industry refer to as a floating taskbar because it's got pixels all around it. It looks like it's floating. It looks honestly more like a dock at this point than, say, a taskbar because it's, well, floating. But if you look at that taskbar, you're going to notice some things are missing that we currently see in Windows 11. First off, while there is no start button in the bottom left because Microsoft did center it, and yes, I know you can put it back, there's no start button there. But you notice there's also no widgets. Where are the widgets on this taskbar? Actually, Microsoft is putting them, if you look in the top left corner of this window, you will see in very small, and it's hard to read text, you will actually see the widgets that Microsoft is currently displaying on the taskbar. That is the first notable change. But the much more significant change is look at the bottom right of that taskbar. Where'd the system tray go? It's not there. Microsoft, in this image, has moved the system tray to the top of the screen. Now, this is a massive move because for literal decades, the system tray has always been in the bottom right corner and it's always contained all your useful information. Now, you might say that this feels a little Mac OS-like inspired because they put that sort of contextual information up in the top of the screen. Either way, we have this image of what Windows 11 could look like, or Windows 12, we don't really know. Now, there's a lot of things we kind of need to parse back here. First off, and this is like the negative side or the contrarian point of view, this is the Surface Studio 2 Plus. It is running aging hardware. It's brand new, quote unquote, and it's running 11th gen Intel chips and a 3000 series GPU, and it also costs more than $4,000, and for that $4,000, you actually get mobile GPU. So it's not a great technological piece of marvel here by any means, but the contrarian me says, like, look, this thing's been ready for so long that they just slapped a mock-up of Windows 11 on it during the keynote, and that's what it is, because it's just been sitting around. They didn't have Windows 11 running at the time, and so this is somebody who didn't know what they were looking at said, here's Windows 11, we'll just put this on the screen because it looks nice. That is one very logical option. The other part of me says, like, look, this is probably a mock-up of where they want to take Windows, a vision. Like, if there were no constraints and you really wanted to evolve the desktop ecosystem for what Microsoft is doing, this might be that vision, a Windows 12, if you will, a Windows V Next, as Microsoft typically refers to it, or actually as they refer to it internally as Windows Next Valley, or NV, at this point. So what else could this be? I don't quite know, but I bet it's somewhere, the truth is somewhere right in that range of, I think it's a concept of where they want to take Windows, and this is the old screenshot that we have, so we did it, and somebody just didn't know what they were looking at. That being said, there is some evidence to support that putting the context or the system tray in the top corner and the widgets up there is actually happening. If you get really into the weeds and nerd out a little bit, you can look up XAML islands. Microsoft has made some actual technological changes to the taskbar where they've rebuilt the system tray, and they're using a technology called XAML islands to do this. Now, why would they just suddenly do that? Well, you could make the arguments like, hey, they're modernizing it, they're giving clean, efficient, new code. Or they're looking at a vision document like this and saying, like, how could we ever actually get the system tray to the top of the screen? Well, the first thing we got to do is decouple it from the taskbar. And so we got to rebuild it. And so we're going to rebuild it and just do it in Windows 11. And we'll just tell people we're working through this, because there was actually a lot of press coverage about how the new XAML island system tray was actually regressing. You couldn't move some certain things around. So you can go look into that yourself. But the Windows team has also done this for widgets. So the foundation for this sort of vision isn't like, yeah, it might be a mock-up from a little bit ago about where they're headed, but there's actually some validity in Microsoft making this a reality. Now, it also kind of brings back the point of, if Microsoft truly goes to a floating taskbar like this, why they haven't reintroduced ungrouping on the taskbar, which is something that many people want. And full transparency, my company Stardock makes Start 11, which allows you to re-enable that. But if they go to a floating taskbar design, then ungrouping, and they actually come into like constraint issues, because it doesn't make sense then to have an expandable one because it's floating. You can't. And so maybe that's part of the reason. It also helps to justify potentially why they are going with this centered start menu experience, because it looks better in this type of an arrangement. Because I think, in my opinion, the most popular arrangement is something how I have my desktop set up like this, where you have the start button in the bottom left, you have icons in the middle ungrouped, and then the system tray on the right. It feels balanced, but if Microsoft's vision is to remove the widgets and remove the system tray, then that balance is lost. And so it's like, if you're going to train the end user, which is a very expensive thing to do, it's a very expensive thing to train the end user at a scale of 1 billion plus users, then maybe it makes sense to not go that route and just say like, look, this is the future, this is where we're headed, bada bing, bada boom. Now, the other thing I want to point out, because Microsoft does love their mockups, also in this same week, Microsoft showed off a Teams mockup, I believe that is a mockup, during the the Meta event, where they showed off the new Oculus, or whatever they're calling their latest headset. The Microsoft Teams will be a part of their new metaverse, and so they showed off this. Now, this looks like a brilliant version of Microsoft Teams that I can guarantee you it was probably a mock-up put together for this, because this looks way better than the current desktop application that many of us use every day for productivity. So just keep in mind that if this truly is a mock-up right here, Microsoft has a rich history of just showing off mock-ups that are truly mock-ups and not actually what is actively being developed, or maybe it's just a vision document. So yeah, I think maybe one day Microsoft Teams will look like this in the metaverse, but as of today, it's not quite there. So back to Windows 12. I mean, is this enough to warrant a Windows 12 version? Microsoft obviously is likely doing some other technical changes. There's some evidence to support that this does exist. We've also known that Microsoft, I believe, has canceled Sun Valley 2. And by canceled, I mean they're just putting Sun Valley 2 features, just rolling them out as these moment updates so they can kind of plow through Windows 11. We also know that Windows 11 adoption rate is kind of low. I would guess somewhere around like 25% based on publicly available data. But again, that Microsoft hasn't shared that information. So until Microsoft actually tells us explicitly how many people are running Windows 11, all we can really do is just take some educated guessing at this point. And so maybe they're looking to move on. You got to remember, we just passed the 1 year anniversary of Windows 11 availability. They've got to be looking ahead, and if they truly are going to ship something as previously reported and roughly the 3 to 4 year mark, that means they got to be getting things lined up so that they can announce it probably in the next 18 months, something like that. And so we will see. I'd love to know, do you guys think that is a mock-up? Is it Windows 12? Is it just laziness on Microsoft's part when they're putting together everything else? Either way, it's an official mock-up. So they clearly had this on the agenda at some point, or something to look forward to. And so there you go. And if you want something to look forward to about what's happening in the world of Microsoft, Windows, Xbox, and beyond, make sure to keep it subscribed here as I hit the mic, because the only BS on this channel is me.